Okay, so to that end, I want to focus on what an argument is. And I'm going to characterize an argument as a line of reasoning that purports to establish a conclusion. So essentially, an argument is an attempt to justify, provide not just a cause or origin story about a belief, but to be able to justify it in order to show that a certain conclusion is a correct one. Now, that's to say that the ordinary English word argument is not quite the same as the way in which I'm using the word here, because arguments in everyday English are often thought of as being loud and involving intense emotions and sometimes throwing of dishes around the room and so forth. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about an argument that can be carried on perfectly coolly and calmly, probably better to be carried on in that way as well, and is one that tries to give evidence in the form of premises and use those premises to support a conclusion. Breaking that up a little bit is going to consist of a set of propositions, including premises and a conclusion. A proposition, I've mentioned before, is the idea that is expressed by an indicative sentence no matter what the language is in which it's expressed. So 2 + 2 is 4, all people are created equal, smoking tends to cause cancer, are all propositions that are capable of being either true or false and that are there for the grasping, whether or not anybody happens to be thinking of the proposition in question. So a proposition is a kind of abstract object that is what is expressed by an indicative sentence in a language, but it does not have to be being thought of by anybody in particular at a certain time. Think about a proposition is not too different from numbers. They're there for the grasping, they've got their own properties independently of our minds, and they're useful because they can be cited as it were, the constituents of arguments. So an argument then is going to be a set of premises, and the beginning few of that argument, of that set of premises, is going to be what is known as the support or the premise set for the argument, and that premise set is going to make an effort at least to support a conclusion, which is what we're trying to establish. So more abstractly, the essence of an argument is going to be, we can characterize as P sub 1, where each P is a proposition, P sub 2, P sub 3, all the way down for some finite number up to P sub n, and then there will often be a horizontal line indicating that these are supposed to be the premise set for the argument, and under that line is what's known as the conclusion proposition C. P1 through Pn are the premises, C is the conclusion. That's going to be the essential structure of an argument for our purposes. Likewise, when we assess an argument, we want to ask the question, well, which of the arguments that we can formulate, which ones are the good ones? Which ones are the persuasive or cogent ones? Those are the ones, that's what we're looking for, and at the same time looking for ways in which when somebody else formulates an argument, how can we tell whether it's any good? Does it contain a pitfall? Does it contain a fallacy in some way? And if so, how? We'll be spending a lot of time in the course of the semester constructing, analyzing, and assessing arguments, and it's a skill that, like mathematics or even like learning a language, is something that it's important to try to master fairly early on, and if you can get on top of the art of argumentation fairly early, you'll have it pay off for you for the rest of your life. It's hard to come too late, not impossible, but more difficult, but the earlier you master the art of argument and their assessment, the better off you'll be, I guarantee it. Now, skill in argumentation not only helps you to persuade others, but it also enables you to replace your opinions with knowledge and the causes, the things that might have caused your beliefs, with things that purport to be justifications for those beliefs. So that's why it seems to me arguments and their assessment is very important. Now, when we get into that assessment project, we want to distinguish among two different aspects. One is going to be the question is, are all the premises in that argument true? Are those premises ones that we can take to be accepted? Another question is going to be, if all the premises are true, would that guarantee the truth of the conclusion? Those are two separate questions. One is, are all the premises true? The other one is, if they were all true, would that guarantee the truth of the conclusion? The first can happen without the second happening, and in fact the second can happen even without the first happening. We'll have to see some of that in more detail.